So moving on to this afternoon session, I'm playing a little bit of supply teacher here for those of you who had this advertised as being with Richard Harvey. Unfortunately, Richard's not able to join us today, so thankfully this is not unfamiliar territory for me, so I'm more than happy to sit in and go through the presentation. And then we have Louise, who's actually in our conference room up at Giraffe, to physically go through the product. So the intention is this afternoon that I'll spend about 10 minutes just going through a quick presentation of very quick snapshot of why we access standing frames for the children that we work with, some of the clinical outcomes we're looking to achieve from standing, and then we'll move through into Louise doing a comprehensive demonstration of the multistander, and then hopefully at the end we'll have plenty of opportunity for people to ask any questions that may come up throughout. If we can ask if you could just hold on to those questions till the end, and then it just helps to keep the flow of the presentation going. And I know that everyone's signed consent to this, but just as a reminder that we are actually recording this presentation, that we can share that with you all in future and use it for internal training. So hello and welcome, and we are Giraffe, and hopefully everyone's familiar with Giraffe, but Giraffe is the UK retail division of Jenx. So Jenx Limited is the parent company, and Giraffe are the product advisors who come and visit you in the UK and who deal with all of your needs. So this afternoon, obviously, we're going to go through 3-in-1 standing, what that really is all about, and what we're hoping to achieve with 3-in-1 standers. Obviously, the product demonstration, and then the opportunity to ask those questions at the very end. So moving on to standing benefits, why do we access standing frames for the children that we work with? And of course, my screen has now decided this is the time to freeze. Here we go. So we're looking at muscular development. So we know that going and accessing a standing frame is really good for helping with the correct muscle development, with tendon length, with really making sure that we're giving that body the best opportunity to develop in a natural pattern as possible. We know that it's really good for our internal organs. So for anybody who spends long periods of time sat down, being able to get up and allow gravity to work in our favour and to actually aid with that postural drainage, allow the diaphragm to drop, allow all of our internal organs that opportunity to expand and not be in that compressed position that they are when they're seated or when we're lay down. So it's really, really good from a postural drainage point of view. And then from our musculoskeletal development, so obviously the way that we develop that bone mineral density and our acetabulum groove, which we'll cover off more in this next slide. So so we're talking about bone strength. So obviously we're talking about the calcification of the bones and getting up into that standing position, and the way the impact that has on bone mineral density. A really key one is that head of development of the head of the femur and the acetabulum groove. So as we know, when we're born, those are very juvenile, they're very malformed. We have a very shallow acetabulum groove, and we don't have such a good head of femur. So it's through standing and that repetitive movement that we develop that more intact acetabulum groove and head of femur. And we know that this is one of the reasons why children with spasticity or a GMFS scale 4 or 5 have issues with hip subluxation and dislocation, because they haven't had the opportunity to form that really good mature and intact head of femur and acetabulum groove to give you a really good intact hip joint there. And we know that we can look at trying to prevent contractures and have healthy hamstring length. So we know, again, if you spend all of your time sat down, then your body will adapt to more of a 90-90 position. So having that opportunity to stand is really good in terms of being able to lengthen out those tendons and ensure that we're not allowing that shortening to occur. And we also have evidence that suggests that standing helps with spasticity management. So actually coming up into a standing position helps to control the level of spasticity and helps to reduce some of that, and hopefully create some follow over of that reduction in tone, so that following an episode of standing, there may be an opportunity for that child or young person to engage in activities that they might not be able to otherwise because of their tonal movement. So 3-in-1 standards, what do we mean when we talk about a 3-in-1 standard? Well, the three disciplines are really prone standing, upright standing, and supine standing. So we'll have a look at each of those disciplines in a little bit more detail, then talk about why it's actually really good if you can access a 3-in-1 standing frame, the value that that brings to you as a therapist and to the child that you're working with. So upright standing, obviously a very small percentage of the client group that we're going to be looking at putting into a standing frame can tolerate a dedicated upright stander, just because it is the more challenging of the standing positions. And obviously, if you do have some sort of postural input needs, then with an upright standing frame, we're really just looking at encouraging that weight bearing through the hips to aid with that hip development. We're looking at getting full weight down through the feet and helping with that spatial and body awareness. So like I say, very small segment of the client group that we work with who can actually access a dedicated upright standing frame. So prone and supine are the two more commonly used standing positions. And again, both of those can be achieved within the multi-stander. So prone standing, it's obviously there for those who can't yet tolerate upright. So whilst I say that's only a small percentage of the client group that we work with, it's obviously always our ultimate goal is to have an end game for the children that we're working with and a goal for them to try and meet. But prone standing is really good for getting you on that path. Particularly with things like the multi-stander, where you are able to adjust the angle of the standing position with the child in the product. So you can actually start off with them in a more passive position, and then actually throughout their dosage of standing, which generally tends to be around an hour, we can maybe bring them up into a more upright position for a short period of time to challenge them against gravity, to challenge the children. And then as they start to fatigue, then we can put them back into that more prone position that allows them to rest and recuperate, and is probably a position that is less challenging for them. We know that standing in prone is good for building neck and head control. So think of it as an extension of that tummy time propping work that you do on the floor. So really you're looking at bringing that through up into a much more upright position. And again, with the multi-stander, as with the vast majority of Jenx standing frames, you can bring them into an exaggerated prone position. So you can actually really mimic the position that you're getting from a wedge or a tummy time, and then gradually increase that through to a more upright position. So it's really good for carrying on that therapeutic input that you'd have had with the child at the very beginning of their postural journey. And we know that it's good for extending the trunk position, and that we're giving the support from the rear. And again, as with all of our products, we're able to adjust that support, so we just make sure that we're giving just the right amount. So we're very conscious of the fact that we don't want to end up with children having overprescribed support. So it's all able to be manoeuvred in such a way that if you want to challenge a child's posture, you want to have them working a little bit more independently, you're able to do so. And as I alluded to earlier, there's clinical evidence out there to suggest that the correct level of support in prone can help to reduce that spastic tone that we see in some of the children we work with. Moving into supine standing, this is really for those children who've got very poor head control, low tone, who are probably the more difficult children to manoeuvre in and out of products. Maybe not so imminent when it's the early intervention side of things, but certainly as children grow through and you need to start looking at things like hoisted transfers in and out of products, then obviously supine is a far easier and far more accessible position to be able to get that child into. It's obviously intended for those children who are of a higher GMFS scale. So you have children who are scoring 4 and 5 are able to go into that supine position. And obviously it's vitally important that we allow all children, no matter what their GMFS scale, the opportunity to come into a standing experience. So being able to come up into a supine stander is a really good way of being able to do that. And again, we know that it's good for the postural drainage and the cardiovascular activity and the breathing. And again, one of the key benefits of accessing a 3-in-1 standing frame is that there may be children who are 9 to 12 months old who we're getting into their standing program. And when we first start treating them and seeing them, supine is the only form of standing that they're able to do. But bearing in mind that a size 1 multistander will grow with a child until they're 6 years old, there's a good window of opportunity there for their skill base and their postural management to improve. And actually they get to the point where they don't need a supine stander anymore. Their head control has developed. So then you're able to utilize that exact same standing frame and turn it into a prone stander, so you can start them on the next evolution of their postural journey. So you're not having to go away and get a separate piece of equipment. You can do it all within the product you've already got from them from the offset. So looking at the multi-stander, some of the key benefits there, especially in the day and age that we live in at the moment, is infection control and managing any soiling. So the material on the picture there, you'll see anything that's in the green is a polyurethane material. That's a foam that self-skins and is impervious to body fluids. So again, looking back at one of the clinical benefits of standing, we have postural drainage there, and it's not uncommon to see a child who has maybe been in a seated posture for a while. When we get them up and put them into a standing frame, you know, we're allowing their body fluids to start moving, gravity's working and doing as it should do, and it's not uncommon to see an overflow and soiling onto the product from where gravity's done what we actually want it to do for a change. So it makes sense from the point of view as Jenx as a manufacturer to build that into the product and make that easy to clean, because we recognise that not every parent has the time or the ability to go and launder covers and remove covers and put them back on. So having that ease of wipe clean is super important. It also means that if you're using the product in a school and you're sharing it between different children, which is quite common practice, it's very easy to wipe it clean with your approved cleaning solution. Dries in seconds, and it means that you're doing your part to address cross-contamination between users. And as I say, particularly under the pandemic environment that we find ourselves in at the moment, that's kind of an added bonus with the product, that we were already thinking of infection control and soiling, but obviously being able to ensure that in this current climate that we keep the products as clean as possible is super good. And again, going back to the future proofing for degenerative disorders, the fact that you've got a product that can do so many different things, you don't need to buy add-ons, you don't need to do complicated modifications, everything's there in the product. It just means that if you do have a deteriorating posture, you can start off in prone and then flip out to supine, and vice versa. If you're able to move on and go to a product, then you're able to flip between the two. Just gonna, sorry, the joys of technology, something just happened on my screen, do apologise. With the size 1, we're able to introduce abduction. So that's a really hot topic in the field of standing at the moment, is being able to stand with a degree of abduction, and the multi-stander can go from 0 to 30 in each leg in 5-degree increments, so that you can really work on that head of femur and acetabulum groove development. So that allows for a split foot plate, so that if you do have a leg length discrepancy, that can be accommodated. And all of the features that are built into the multi-stander are really there around the opportunity to reissue the product as well. So again, if you've bought a dedicated supine or a dedicated prone stander, then the next child that's going to use it needs to be able to stand in that discipline. Whereas with the 3-in-1 products, you can use it with the next child who needs a standing frame, be it supine, prone or upright. So that's just a quick whistle-stop tour of why we stand and a few key benefits of the product. I'm going to hand over now to Louise Jenkins, who's going to go through the physical presentation of the product.
This is basically the range. You've got the size 1 and the size 2. I'm going to focus predominantly today on the multi-stander 1 with abduction, but like Paul said, there will be some time at the end for questions. So if anybody wants to see the size 2 in a bit more detail, we can look at that then. I think Paul mentioned in the presentation age ranges. You're looking at about 9 months right the way up to about 13, 14 years old, crossing over both sizes there. This one here is going to be taking you up to about age 6. Obviously age ranges are a little bit difficult to pinpoint, but just to give you a rough idea. Colours, These are all green, as you can see, but the standards do come in pink, red, blue, and grey also. So you've got a bit of choice there. I'm just going to take this tray off so you can actually see what we're looking at. So I'm going to run through this standard sort of from the bottom up, take you through some of the features and adjustments and some of the benefits. Just helps me remember what it is I've said and what it is I haven't said. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring the overall height of the standard up, and that's going to make it a bit easier for you to see, hopefully, but also it will make it easier for me to get to the adjustments at the back of the standard, as you'll see in a moment. So this is something that I recommend that you do in your appointments if you're making adjustments. If you've got the abduction accessory on there, it's much easier if you bring the whole standard up, because as you can see, all the adjustments are here at the back. And when I had that right down there, they're a little bit hidden behind this stuff. So one of the best things I think about this standard, one of my favourite things, is the footprint. The standard has got a really small footprint. It's very compact. If you're wanting to take this into a small house or a nursery, it's going to slot in quite nicely there, and it's not going to stick out and people aren't going to be tripping over it. You've got 4 swivel casters, each with a brake, and then on the back here you've got this T-bar, and what that does is control the tilt or the angle of the frame. So as Paul was talking about different sort of prone angles and laying the standard flat to get hoisted into and what have you, that's how you do that there. So you press the T-bar down, and that's how you adjust your frame. Once you've got it in the position that you want it to be in, there's also this very handy little black tab here, and if you click that in underneath, what that does is that locks that T-bar in place. So if again you are in a school or even in a house with siblings, nobody's going to accidentally stand on that or play with it, and the frame isn't going to tilt. So moving on up to the foot plates. If you've got the multi-stander with the abduction accessory on, you're going to have a split foot plate. That's obviously going to mean that you can abduct the accessory, but what it also means is that you can adjust the feet separately, so we can accommodate for leg length discrepancy if needed, but also we can change the plantar and dorsiflexion separately as well. So if you need more or less on either foot, then that's achievable with this foot plate. These sandals that I've got on here are the Jenx size 1 sandals. There's a few different options and different sizes of sandals, but they all fit in the same way. They are a little wing knob underneath, and then you can slide them around quite a lot in here. There's lots of different positions that you can get them in, so you can do some really nice fine tuning for the foot position there, and then you're simply locking them back into place with the wing knobs underneath. So I've got this standard set up in quite a small configuration for somebody who's perhaps just started standing. If you're wanting to then make it taller, what we're going to do is, if I just spin this round, there's a couple of little bolts on the back here. I'll do this one first. If you loosen those off with your Allen key there, if you're supporting the foot plate as well, you can then drop the foot plate down to the desired height, and then just tightening them back up. So you can see now, hopefully, this foot plate is much lower. I'm going to even this one up on this side, and I just want to drop it right down to the bottom almost to show you just how much range you've got there. And actually, if I undo some more bolts on the back here, I could get that down even lower than that. So you've got quite a lot of growth in there. Once you have your foot plate at the desired height, you're probably going to want to adjust your knee block. So behind the knee block, there's a black wing knob which attaches this bracket here to this white bracket. It's not going to be very easy for you guys to see that on the video, unfortunately, but hopefully you can see the range of movement there that I'm getting. So it's it's kind of on an arc, I guess. So you've got quite a lot of range of movement up and down, but you've also got backwards and forwards travel as well there. So we can accommodate quite a considerable amount of flexion with these knee blocks. Once you've got them in the right position, simply lock them back off with the wing knot there. Behind the knee block, you've got a couple of Allen key screws, and if you loosen those off, you get even more adjustment there. So you've got some adjustment in and out, and also angle adjustment and angle adjustment there as well. So there's an awful lot of adjustment in this frame, and it can be sometimes a little bit to get your head around, but once you have, it's one of its great features, just the amount of adjustment that you do get. So I'm going to just move up to the pelvic board, and then I'll come back to the abduction in a moment. Moving on up here, so this is your pelvic board here. This has the ability to move up and down on the stem, on the central stem. When you do move this pelvic board, it does also move the knees and the feet because the abduction accessory is attached to the board there. So that's just something to bear in mind. You want to get this one set up first and then do your knees and your feet afterwards. With regards to positioning at the pelvis, I've got these small positioning blocks on here. You can also get these in medium, which are on the size 2 over there. We use these positioning blocks in our supine range as well, and there's a lot of different sizes and styles there. The strap for the positioning blocks, use the Velcro, is nice and thick, and you can get a really nice wrap around here. So you want to get this wrapped right the way around over the top like that. And once you've got that wrapped around the body, you then use this webbing on the side to tighten the strapping in. So hopefully you can see that on the video. If I try and do it from behind here, it will pull it in like so. And that's really great if you're going in prone, because I often find when you get a child in prone, they kind of sit on the strap a little bit. And if you give this a tug from the outside, that's going to pull their bottom right into the frame. You can also use this strap to correct any sort of flexible obliquities you might have in the pelvis. So if you pull one side of the strap, what that's going to do is pull this side in a little bit. So it might just help to level up that pelvis a little bit there. Once you've got it where you want it, you simply stick in the webbing on the side here, and then you've got your extra safety clip there. If I just spin this around a second, I hope you can see there's a couple of wing knobs on the back here. There's 4. So what they are doing are controlling these pads here at the front. So if you loosen those off at the back, you'll get some up and down motion in the pad, and also you'll get your width adjustment there as well. Moving up to the thoracic board, this board will also move up and down. You can get this board very low if you're going into prone. You have to have it a little bit higher to fit the headrest on if you're going supine, but if you're going into prone, it will come down very low, so we can make the stander very, very small. The flexible thoracics that I've got on here, again, come in a variety of sizes. The strap for them works in exactly the same way as the pelvic strap does. The only difference really that you're getting here is that when you clip these together, as you can see these are flexible, when you clip them together and tighten them up at the front, you're going to get that really nice hug around the front there. So instead of just the sort of lateral support, you're getting some support across the front of the chest here as well. You can mix and match these, so you could have blocks at the trunk as well if you wanted to. It is an option. Moving on up to the head support. So again, as you can see, there's a couple of different choices for head support. This is the Jenx Multi-Grip 2-link head support. If you are familiar with Jenx equipment, you will almost definitely have seen one of these. We use them on pretty much all of our products. I will just run through it with you though. So if you undo these little levers here at the back of the on the arm bracket, you can see hopefully there that you've got a massive range of adjustment in where you can position that head support. So you can come in up high and angle down a little bit, or you can come in just at the back of the head, or even come in underneath and angle upwards a little bit and get sort of right underneath the occiput there. I think in one of the pictures that Paul had on his slides, that's how it was set up for one of the little girls in one of those photos. Once you've decided where your head support needs to go, you just tighten up these levers here at the back, and there it will stay. You have probably noticed that it is contoured, and you can change the shape of this head support. I'll show you on this one I've got here with no cover on. You've got basically, these are kind of like fingers. So wherever, the idea with this is wherever you would put your hands to hold the child's head in position, you can make that shape using this head support, simply by loosening these links, manipulating the links, and then tightening them back up again. So you can bring the head control round on one side or both sides. You can splay out the ends like so, which can just help to not create a tunnel effect. There's a lot of adjustment in this as well. You don't have to take the cover off to make these adjustments. I just did that so that you could see what was in there. So now we've set up our stander for our child in supine. We're going to want to bring the stander back down, because one of the main things that I love about this stander, is, along with the foot plate, is how low to the ground you actually stand. So you're standing with your peer group. So we want to bring this back down to the bottom. Now you can bring the stander right the way back down to the bottom here, but if you do that, you're going to limit the amount of abduction that you're going to get. So you're going to want to bring it to just above the level of the frame there. And if we have a look at the back here again, there's a couple of little silver plunges here, and if you pull that out, you can then pull out your individual legs. And these will come out in 5-degree increments, and they'll go all the way out to sort of 30 on either side. I tend to go for 15, but it's obviously dependent upon the child. So that is your size 1 multistander in abduction set up in the supine configuration. So one of the things that Paul's obviously been mentioning in his slides is the fact that you can change this stander to a prone configuration. So I'm going to show you now just how easy it is to do that. So the first thing you're going to want to do is loosen off your sandals again, like we did before, to do the adjustments. And we're just going to spin them 180 degrees and then tighten them back in with the wing nut there. Like so. Once you've done that, you're probably going to want to adjust your knee blocks. You might not need to adjust them for height if it's the same child going in the standing frame, but you might need to push them back towards the frame a little bit more. If you've had a child in supine, you might have had the knee blocks just pushed a little proud of the frame here to accommodate a natural kind of bend. So you might need to pop those backwards a little bit to make them level with the frame. If it's the same child, the pelvic position is going to stay the same, as is the trunk positioning. The next thing you're going to want to do is remove your head support. So that's just loosening off the 2 little screws on the interface plate there, and the head support will just slide off. Pop that down there out of the way. And the final thing is we want to alter the position of the tray bracket arm so that we can allow the same tray that we had in the supine configuration to just slot in a different way. Now, again, you're not going to be able to see this unfortunately on the video, but there is a very handy little sticker here. So you've got a little supine man and a little prone man on there, and all you do to make sure you're getting it in the right way is line up your stickers. So if I just take these two bolts out, talk amongst yourselves. There we go. So you've got the same stickers on the bar here. So we had it in this position here for supine. So the supine man is lining up with the supine man, and then we're just going to swap that around so that the prone man is lining up with the prone man, and then we're going to put our bolts back through. And then we'll just tighten those up. And then what that's going to allow us to do is take the same tray that we had on there before while we were in supine. Using the wing knobs on the sides of the tray arms, we're going to loosen those off and drop them into a vertical position. And then we're going to drop the whole tray into the tray bracket arm like so. Once we get the desired height, we can tighten those up. Little wing nuts on the side of the tray bracket there, and tighten up the ones that we used to change the angle of the tray arms. Now, if I angle this forwards and spin it so you can see now that we've got the tray in a prone position, but we've got this huge gap here, which is obviously not ideal. That's going to be great fun, I'm sure, posting toys and food down there and getting arms trapped, but we don't want that. So there's a couple of wing knobs underneath the tray. If you loosen those off, push the tray up as far as you can and tighten them back up. And that's gone a long way to closing off that gap. So all you've got left then is this little crescent here. Every tray will come with one of these, which is an infill. And if we can just pop that into the tray there like so and lock it into place, that will then cover the whole gap there. So you've now got your prone configuration for your multi-stander 1 with abduction. And there it is. So there's a lot of crossover with regards to the adjustments and the accessories. The only difference, for example, from this one here to this one is the foot plate. That has the standard foot plate on there, which is angle adjustable, but it moves all in one. So you don't get that split foot plate on the one there. And then on the size 2, there are a couple of accessories that you can get for the size 2 that you can't on the one, so I haven't shown them to you. One is this multi-grip body support. So this works in pretty much exactly the same way as the multi-grip head support that I showed you here. And you can put this here above the trunk or in between the trunk and the pelvis, or both. If I just pull this out. So you could put one of these down here also. Another thing that we can use on the size 2 multi-stander is a waistcoat harness as well. I think that's pretty much it for the multi-stander.
I think the only thing I would say in addition is obviously on the size 1, we're looking at children who are up to 6 years old. So their body weight tends to be quite manageable. So we use a gas strut for altering the angle, as Louise was showing us there. On the size 2, where we're potentially going up to users who are around the 60 kilogram mark, we felt that a gas strut wouldn't quite be as safe for the care provider or the classroom assistant to use. So there's two options on the angle adjustment for the size 2. There's either a manual winder, which is a handle that allows you to wind the product through its angle range, and that's quite a slow and steady adjustment of the angle, because we don't want anybody suddenly moving their position. Or if you're in an environment where manual handling is particularly important, then there's a powered option as well, like you'd find on our supine standard. So you're actually able to have a powered control unit that then has a completely removes away any manual handling implications, and I say takes that over to a powered option. But no, other than that, Lou, that was absolutely fantastic.
Thank you, Paul. I'm just adjusting the standard to make it look a little bit bigger, because there was a question I think I saw, there's quite a few coming in the chat, that one about how the separation between the thoracic board and the pelvic board. So just sort of to give you an idea of how tall we can go there. We're probably not going to get that much separation, to be honest, but it is available. Sorry, I can't remember who asked the question because the chat's now moved down so much that I don't know who asked, but somebody did, I'm sure. I didn't dream it.
Just as an additional point, if anybody has any concerns about those gaps between the boards, obviously Louise has shown you on the size 2 how to put in the multi-grip support unit that fits into those gaps. There's always the supine standards if you've got somebody who is always going to stand in supine, and where you are worried perhaps they have ataxic or athetoid style movement, and you are worried about any potential issues with gaps in the product. So to enable the multi-stander to offer that 3-in-1 standing with both the prone and the supine, you need to have that element of adjustment in the boards. But we recognise that whilst that's suitable for an awful lot of the client group that we're working with, there are times when you might need to go to a dedicated supine stander, which is why we also have those in the range, and it's why there's actually quite a range of different standing variants within the catalogue of products that Giraffe offer. It's because that as much as we'd love to be able to produce a one solution fits all product, we know that the children that we work with sometimes have their own unique challenges, so we wanted to be able to address that in the way that products work. But like I say, for the whole, with the multi-stander, you know, it is pretty versatile in terms of being able to be used across a wide range of people. There was also a comment in the chat box, I think it was one of the first ones, so apologies that we're only just seeing it, just asking about the lifespan of products. Now, obviously, providing they're well looked after, and that they're not with families who tend to not particularly look after the equipment, we would hope to see at least 7 years, potentially up to 10 years out of the product. You know, like I say, they are designed to go through the reissue process. That's why there's the polyurethane pads from a cleansing point of view. Any of the fabric covers can easily be replaced. So yeah, you know, we do try and build in longevity to the products, and very often the governing factor is whether they've been neglected when they've been issued, or whether they've not been serviced appropriately as they've gone back throughout to reissue. And there are some things that we would consider to be consumables, like the cover, for example, for the multi-grip head support. You know, you can buy a fresh cover, you don't have to buy the whole unit. And sometimes you'll find that areas that are particularly prone to soiling, no matter how many times you launder them, they are going to start to deteriorate. So we can actually normally buy replacement covers for those areas, so that you don't have to replace the whole section. You can just buy the fabric cover, and that obviously reduces the on costs then, and also means that you're issuing something which, from an external point of view, looks brand new.
Is the stand still available if we now have this? Yes, it is. Very much so. So you've got a choice of 2 3-in-1 standing frames from Jenx, and there are pros and cons to both of them. The stands is tool free, so if that's something that you particularly want, then you might want to have a look at that one. It has a much bigger footprint. So like I said at the beginning, with this one, it might not necessarily fit as neatly into a nursery setting, but one of the things that I really like about the stands is the child stands up a little bit higher in it. So I said that was a pro for this one, and it is, but what's nice about the stands is if you've got it at home and you're in the kitchen baking or something, you're more on a parent level with that one. So sometimes that can be a nice benefit there for that one. So it's about maybe if you're wanting a 2-in-1, a 3-in-1 standing frame, maybe having a look at both and seeing which one fits that environment and the needs for that one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that statement from Louise there. You know, again, part of the reason why there are a number of different variants of standards is it's, you know, we very much focus around the clinical needs of the child, but sometimes you have to look at the environment that the product's being used in as well. And with stands, it is actually a higher transfer height in and out. So if you have a parent who isn't ready to move over to using hoists and still wants to physically lift their child, the multi-stander, because of the very nature of being able to get the child's feet nice and close to the foot plate, is a lower transfer height, whereas the stands is an elevated transfer height, so it's a little bit easier for the parent lifting in and out on their own. And obviously, it's not our place to dictate whether people access hoists and slings. We're just trying to provide different solutions that will help people. Another note from the chat was from Katie in Birmingham, was asking about if there's the option for elbow blocks on the tray, and yes, there absolutely are. I think if Louise picks up, you can see the slots at the back there, and we can fit blocks onto there as we can with most of our standing frames. So yeah, we're able to put elbow blocks into place there if we do have a child who significantly retracts those arms. Do we have any videos on how to put the child in? Well, we'll answer on. Do we have any videos of how to put the child in and out the stander? We don't. It's a difficult one for us as a manufacturer because obviously different areas that access products have different protocols, have different ways of suggesting that parents get the child in and out of the product. And what we need to be careful of is that as a company, we don't seem to be advocating a particular style of transferring. And I think that some of that is also to do with the fact that whilst obviously we're here looking at the products in the UK arena, we have people who view our videos from around the globe, and there are different protocols in lots of different countries. So we just tend to be a little bit careful of the information that we put out there. And we put in lots of different ways of people being able to get children in and out of products, and then allow them to choose the route that's right for the child and the family and the environment that they're working with. There was another question about do we have any different wheelbase options? Currently, we don't. With the Jenx products, under the Giraffe umbrella, there are some dynamic standing frames that allow the child the opportunity to have that ability to manually propel themselves around, so they can get the benefits of being in a standing frame and also that freedom of movement. So because that's available to the team at Giraffe, we haven't felt the need to go down that route, because like I say, there are some solutions there. And there's
one from Siobhan, I think it is, about the knee blocks. Above the wheelbase option.
Yep, got it. Sorry.
Is that on the abduction accessory or the?
If on the standard one, there is actually the option to reverse the knee block bracket. So it can be set so that the knee blocks do sit further back. So sometimes, depending on whether a child's used it before or how it's gone out configured, it might be that there's a necessity to rotate that knee block through 180 degrees and bolt it back on. And if that's something that you've got a particular necessity to do, then it might be worth just having a chat with Louise, because over the virtual appointments that we can do, it might be something that Louise can talk you through.
Very bespoke, so it's very difficult to pick a price. If you're going for the standard one, not with the abduction accessory, I think you're probably looking at about 1,400 right up to about 2,500, depending on what accessories that you require, I guess. It's going to start a little bit higher if you've got the abduction accessory on there. So it just depends on what you need, basically.
What I would interject there is that obviously when you're talking about pricing in isolation, they can always sound a little bit on the high side, because due to the very nature of the products that we work with, we can't mass produce as you would with mainstream products. So they always do seem to have a little bit of a, it always sounds like an elevated price tag, but we certainly do an awful lot of work to ensure that our products are in the same ballpark price wise as competitive products out there, so from other manufacturers. So we when I say, when you look at them in isolation, they always sound as if it's quite a big price tag, but when you look at them in the ballpark of their peer group and other manufacturers' products, they all seem to come in at around about the same price point. And like I say, we try to put in added value features with our products as well, such as the polyurethane, so that it's wipe clean, because we know that parents have issues with removing covers to launder them. The 5-day dispatch that Giraffe offer on the products, the after sales service that there is. So I think from a price point we're there or thereabouts against our the other manufacturers, and hopefully there's some features that are unique to the Jenx and Giraffe products that hopefully help to validate that pricing as well.
I think another quick thing to mention as well is that we have quite a lot of options for loan. So
yeah.
we do an approved scheme, which means you can loan that piece of equipment for a year. And also we're currently running the emergency posture loans as well, the emergency provision loans. So you can loan for 3 months or 6 months with that as well. And then if you choose to buy the stander after that, you get some money off. I think you get the price of the loan off.
It's also worth remembering that if you have any products that are out there that are starting to show the signs of time and they're not really suitable for reissuing to other children, if they're a Jenx or a product that comes under the Riften portfolio, you are able to trade those in and gain a voucher to put towards the cost of a new product. So whilst we know that nobody likes letting go of products, because we're always scrambling to get equipment out to children, once a product gets to the point where it's really no longer safe to be issued, or it's just gotten to the point of disrepair, or aesthetically you'd be embarrassed to take it into a family, that product still has value, and we can take that product back. And what we can also do with that then is ensure that it's appropriately decommissioned and that all of the parts are where possible recycled, and that all those materials are not just disposed of into landfill, that they're all put into the proper sections and recycled appropriately. Plus, like I say, you get a voucher towards a brand spanking new piece of Giraffe equipment.
There's a question about from Emma: is there always a gap between the chest support and tray if no inlay is put on? So I think that's about when you're in the prone position. So before I pop this inlay on here, there is this sort of semicircular gap here. Yeah, so that gap will always be there unless you put this inlay in.
Yeah. As Louise said, that inlay always comes with the tray as standard. It's one of those things that sometimes gets taken off and put in a safe place. But the reason that we did that, when we were originally developing the Multistander, and we spoke to a lot of therapists who were using other 3-in-1 standing frames, one of the biggest criticisms they had of 3-in-1 standards was always the tray. Because when you're using it in supine, you need that cutout so the tray comes around the child's torso and it forms to their body shape, and you need that, otherwise there'd be again gaps for them to lose their elbow in. But then when you transferred that product through into the prone application, there was always that issue that because you've got that curved shape to the tray, there was always a gap, and very often you were finding that the IKEA snake or some cuddly toys or wedges were coming out to try and fill the gap, which is why we developed the tray in the way that we did, to make sure that it could be just as effective in prone as it is in supine. And again, some of the manufacturers have gone down the path of having a dedicated prone tray and a dedicated supine tray, which is fine, but it's just an additional complete assembly that you need. And we wanted to try and really simplify that down so you didn't have to buy add-ons to split between the two disciplines.
Yeah, and you can buy these separately if you've lost one, or somebody's lost one, or stores have lost one. And you can buy these as a replacement. What have we got next? Time limits on trade-ins for older equipment. If we have items from 10 years ago, can these still fall under the trade-in offer? Yes, they can. Is it 10%, Paul?
I honestly don't know the exact value, but I know that it's something that we still offer.
Yeah, so it's 10% off the price of that piece of equipment as it is now. So if you were to trade in an older multi-stander, you would get the cost of you get 10% off a new multi-stander money-wise. You don't have to spend it on a new multi-stander. You can spend it on anything from Giraffe, but that's the amount of money within a voucher that you're going to get. If the equipment that you've got is discontinued and we don't sell it anymore, then you get a fixed price. And I don't know what those prices are, I'm afraid. But if it is something that you're interested in, the best thing to do is send in a list of what you've got to customer support. So if you send in, Chris can send you this information, or we can have a chat about it later. But if you send in a list of what you've got and the serial numbers, then you'll be able to get sort of the customer support will be able to tell you how much each one is worth, if that makes sense.
Well, we're coming towards the end of our allotted time, so I think there's a couple of people asking after the loan program as well. It's a really good system to look at, the loan program. It really does help, and the beauty with the way that it works is that if the child's needs change during the loan period, we swap out the piece of equipment for something else in the Giraffe range, which is comparable, and there's no on cost for that. So it's a really good system to get into.
Are you getting the loan of a provision of equipment for that child? It doesn't necessarily have to be the same piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, so like I say, we'll bring this one to a close, and thank everyone for your time and attention today. Hopefully you've gained some useful information from it, and obviously your local product advisor is able to come in and do any assessments that you want, or any further product demonstrations, or even if you just want to get hands-on with the product yourself and actually look at some of the features that Louise and I have spoken about. But yeah, if there's any questions, then please do let customer service know. They can always forward those questions on to us if it's something specific. And hopefully see you all again at the next event we do soon.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.